You are standing on Pluto. It is noon, and it is darker than the alley behind your house at midnight. The sun is up, somewhere. A hard, bright point burning at a fixed spot in a black sky. Not a disk, not a glow. A pinprick. 1/1000th of the light Earth receives. The sky above you is not navy, not deep indigo. It is black. At noon. Your shadow exists, but it is so faint you have to move your hand twice to confirm it is real. It does not stretch the way a shadow should. It barely commits. Where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? Step outside, look up, and remember what daylight feels like. Because the world we are about to walk into has none of it. Here is the thesis. Pluto's sky is not exotic. It is not the stargazer's paradise the postcards keep selling. It is hostile. Quietly, structurally hostile to the act of looking itself. To the way your eyes evolved. To the way your brain stitches a world out of light. And what that sky reveals, once you stop romanticizing it, is something about our place in the solar system the press releases never quite said out loud. By the end of this, you will understand why standing on Pluto would not feel like wonder. It would feel like being shown the door, the edge of the lit corridor, the point past which the universe stops pretending we belong in it. But before we look up, we have to talk about what up even means out here. Because the geometry of this sky is not the geometry you grew up with. The sun is not where you think it is. The stars are too clear, too still, too many. The horizon is closer than your instincts expect. Every assumption your visual system carries about color, depth, motion, contrast, was calibrated for one specific planet, one specific star, one specific atmosphere. None of those calibrations apply here. You would not gasp at the view. You would squint. You would wait for your eyes to adjust to a darkness that never resolves. You would look for the sun and find a star. You would look for a horizon and find a world that ends before your eyes expect it to. That is the sky we are going to walk through, not the rendered one, the real one. You have seen this sky before. Not the real one, the painted one, the artist's rendering, the documentary still, the mission press image rendered with just enough atmospheric blue to make your eye feel at home. In every version you have absorbed, Pluto looks like a twilight world. There is Charon, enormous, hanging above an ice plain. There is a thin blue halo wrapped around the horizon, lit from behind by a sun that looks small, but still recognizably a sun. There is a quiet, cinematic beauty to it. It looks distant. It looks cold. It looks survivable. Like a place a future astronaut could stand and feel awe. That image is not a lie, but it is wrong in a specific direction. It is wrong in the direction that flatters us. Start with the blue haze. It is real. New Horizons photographed it on the way out, backlit against the sun. What the image does not show you is that this haze is functionally invisible from the surface. It is a tenuous layer of hydrocarbon particles in an atmosphere roughly 100,000 times thinner than Earth's. From above, lit edge on, it glows. From below, looking up through it, there is nothing to see. The blue is a property of the photograph, not of standing there. Now Charon. Yes, it is enormous in Pluto's sky, about 7 times the angular size of a full moon from Earth. But Charon is tidally locked to Pluto in a way no other major moon in the solar system is. It hangs in one fixed spot. It does not rise, it does not set. And here is the part the postcards almost never mention. Half of Pluto never sees Charon at all. Stand on the wrong hemisphere, and that cinematic moon is on the other side of the world, permanently, for the entire 248-year orbit and beyond. Then the word twilight. Documentaries love it. It sounds poetic. Twilight on Pluto, a world bathed in eternal soft light. But twilight on Earth is a transition. It lasts minutes. It implies a coming sunrise or a recent sunset. On Pluto, what looks like twilight is the maximum. It is the brightest the sky ever gets. There is no dawn waiting behind it. The word twilight smuggles in a promise of more, and on Pluto, there is no more. This is the pattern. Every comforting word we use about Pluto's sky borrows weight from an Earth experience and quietly drops the part that makes it bearable. Twilight without the day, a moon without the rising, a halo without the warmth behind it, a sky without the air. The renderings are made for a species that lives in daylight. They have to be. The real sky is the one we have to talk about now. And to understand what your eyes would actually do under that sky, we have to start with the light itself. Because there is almost none of it.
The reason Pluto is dark is not exotic. It is geometry. The same geometry that governs every light source you have ever stood under. A candle, a street lamp, the sun itself. Light spreads. As it spreads, it thins. Double the distance, and the same amount of light has to cover 4 times the area. Triple the distance, 9 times. The math is called the inverse square law, and it is one of the most boring, unforgiving rules in physics. Earth sits 1 astronomical unit from the Sun. Pluto, at aphelion, sits at roughly 49. Run the numbers, and the solar flux at Pluto's surface drops to about 1/1600 of what Earth receives. Closer in, at perihelion, it improves slightly, but never enough to matter. Noon on Pluto delivers somewhere around 0.0006 of Earth's peak solar intensity. That number is too abstract to feel, so translate it. It is brighter than a full moon on a clear Earth night. It is dimmer than a street light viewed from 100 meters away. It is enough light to read a book, but only if you held the book close to your face and waited several minutes for your eyes to adjust. It is the light level astronomers call civil twilight, the window after sunset when the sky still glows but headlights start coming on. That is Pluto, at noon, forever. Your eyes would adapt. Human vision has a remarkable dynamic range, and given time, your pupils would dilate, your rods would take over from your cones, and the world would resolve into something visible. But adapted vision is not the same as functional vision. Rods do not see color. They see motion and contrast in shades of gray. So even fully adjusted, the world around you would drain. The reddish nitrogen ices, the dark hydrocarbon stains, the subtle tonal variation across Sputnik Planitia, all of it would flatten into a monochrome landscape. Depth perception would weaken. Motion tracking would degrade. Your brain would keep waiting for more light, and more light would never come. Here is the part that should bother you. Human vision did not evolve to handle this. It evolved inside a very specific light budget, set by one specific star at one specific distance. Step outside that budget, in either direction, and the system does not gracefully scale. It fails in characteristic ways. On the bright end, you go blind from overload. On the dim end, you go functionally colorblind and depth impaired, even though you can still technically see. Pluto sits well outside the budget, not at the edge, outside. And the dimness is only the first problem. Because even if your eyes adapted perfectly, the geometry of what you would be looking at has its own surprise waiting. From Earth, the Sun is a disk, roughly half a degree across, about 1,800 arcseconds. Large enough that your eye resolves it as a shape, not a point. Large enough to cast soft-edged shadows, because light coming from a disk arrives at slightly different angles from different parts of the disk. Large enough that when it sets in stages. The upper limb, the lower limb, the slow geometric event we call sunset. From Pluto, the Sun's angular diameter collapses to about 50 arcseconds. That number sounds like it still means something. It does not. The human eye's resolution limit is around 60 arcseconds, about 1 arc minute. Below that threshold, your visual system cannot tell a small disk from a point, which means this. From Pluto, the Sun is not a disk. It is below the resolution of your eye. It is a point source, a bright dot. Brighter than any other dot in the sky, yes, but a dot. Indistinguishable in shape from Sirius. Indistinguishable in shape from Vega, the thing your entire planet was built around, the gravitational anchor of the solar system, the object every culture in human history has worshipped, named, tracked, feared, and depended on, reduced to a star in your peripheral vision. Let that sit for a second. There is no sunrise on Pluto, not in any sense a human would recognize. No widening glow on the horizon. No warming arc as the disk climbs. No moment where the upper limb breaks the skyline and the world ignites. Just a bright point that appears, crosses the sky over the course of many Earth days, and disappears. That is the entire event. The thing your nervous system reads as day beginning, the slow geometric ceremony of a star clearing the horizon, does not happen here. It cannot happen. There is no disk to clear anything. And once the Sun is just a star, the entire emotional architecture of a sky collapses. On Earth, the Sun dominates. Everything else in the sky is reference material. Moons, stars, planets, measured against the central authority of the disk. Take the disk away, and the hierarchy dissolves. The Sun becomes just another light in the catalogue. A brighter one by a wide margin, but not categorically different in appearance from the thousands of other points around it. The thing you would look for to orient yourself, to find direction, to feel anchored, does not anchor anymore. The Sun is the one object every human culture has agreed is special. Every calendar bends around it. Every clock descends from it. On Pluto, that agreement breaks. The Sun is demoted, not by a press release, but by geometry, by distance, by the same boring law that thinned its light. And once the Sun is reduced to a star, every other star starts to matter more than it ever has. Earth's atmosphere has been hiding the real sky from you your entire life. You have never seen it. Not really. Even on the clearest night, in the darkest desert, at the highest observatory, you have been looking through 100 kilometers of air that scatters starlight, blurs it, shifts it, dims it. Air that turns sharp points into shimmering smears. Air that throws a faint, omnipresent sky glow across everything, so that even on a moonless night, the sky between the stars is not truly black. On Pluto, none of that exists. The atmosphere is so thin, about 10 microbars, roughly 1/100,000th of Earth's surface pressure, that it does effectively nothing to the light passing through it. There is no scattering, no sky glow, no turbulence, no twinkle. Stars on Pluto do not flicker. They sit. Each one is a fixed mathematical point, holding its position with a stillness that does not exist anywhere on Earth. You would see stars 5 to 6 magnitudes fainter than what is visible at the darkest sites on our planet. That sounds like a small improvement. It is not. The magnitude scale is logarithmic. 5 magnitudes is a factor of 100. 6 is a factor of 250. The number of visible stars does not double or triple. It explodes by an order of magnitude or more. The Milky Way overhead would not be a soft band of light. It would be a structured, three-dimensional river of stars so dense that the gaps between them look like the anomaly, not the stars themselves. People assume darker sky equals more beautiful. They assume Pluto would be the ultimate Bortle 1 experience, the perfect dark sight. Here is where that intuition breaks. A sky that dark does not feel beautiful. It feels exposed. The Milky Way over Pluto is bright enough to cast a shadow, a real, measurable shadow. And on the hemisphere facing away from Charon, that galactic shadow may be the only shadow you have for half of Pluto's long day. You would stand on the ice plain and see your own outline drawn by the light of 100 billion stars. Not by the sun, not by a moon, but by the galaxy itself. That is not a postcard. That is a confrontation. Because a sky this clear is not a gift. A sky this clear means there is nothing between you and what is out there. No atmosphere thick enough to filter ultraviolet. No magnetic field worth mentioning to deflect cosmic rays. No protective layer of gas that on Earth quietly absorbs the worst of what space throws at the surface. The same thinness that makes the stars sharp is the thinness that makes the surface lethal. The view is the warning. The clarity is the exposure. And the body standing under that sky is what gets exposed first. The sky over Pluto is not just dim. It is the visual signature of an environment actively trying to end you. Start with temperature. The surface sits at about 40 Kelvin. That is minus 230 Celsius, minus 380 Fahrenheit. Numbers that large lose meaning, so translate them. At 40 Kelvin, nitrogen is not a gas. It is rock. The ice plains of Sputnik Planitia are not water ice. They are frozen nitrogen, frozen methane, frozen carbon monoxide. Sheets of compounds that on Earth exist only as breath and exhaust. A human body, unprotected, would not freeze on Pluto in the way frostbite freezes a finger on a winter night. It would do something stranger. The moisture in your tissues would not slowly crystallize. It would snow out. The water in your eyes would solidify from the inside before your eyelids could close. Your breath would not fog. There is barely an atmosphere to fog into. The water vapor in your exhale would precipitate as frost the moment it left your mouth. And the atmosphere, such as it exists, offers nothing back. 10 microbars of pressure means no thermal buffering. The heat radiating off your suit would dissipate into a near vacuum that does not slow it. There is no insulating air to trap warmth. There is no convective layer to even out temperature gradients. You would be a small, warm object, losing energy in every direction at once, into a sky that absorbs everything and returns nothing. Then the radiation. Pluto sits far enough from the sun that solar radiation drops, but cosmic ray exposure does not. Galactic cosmic rays are not produced by the sun. They come from supernovae across the galaxy, and at 39 astronomical units, the heliosphere is thinning, weaker, less able to deflect them. Estimates suggest dose rates orders of magnitude higher than what astronauts experience on the International Space Station. The ISS crew is shielded by both spacecraft hull and Earth's magnetosphere. On Pluto's surface, you would have neither. Apollo astronauts on the Moon had things Pluto does not give you. They had the Sun as a real heat source, close enough that suit thermal design could work with it, not just against it. They had Earth in their sky as a reference object, a blue marker of where home was, large and unmistakable. They had a round-trip architecture that brought them back in days, not decades. On Pluto, none of that exists. The Sun is a star. The Earth is invisible to the naked eye. The cold is not weather. It is a physical state your biology has no protocol for. The sky over you is the warning. The clarity, the darkness, the still stars, the demoted sun. All of it is the visible face of an environment that has no use for warm-blooded chemistry. And the worst part is what's missing from the sky entirely. Charon is the most cinematic object in Pluto's sky. It is also the source of the strangest paradox in this entire story. Start with the size. Charon spans about 3.8 degrees of sky from Pluto's surface, roughly 7 times the angular size of the full moon from Earth. It dominates the view on the hemisphere that faces it. Surface features are visible to the naked eye: the dark polar cap, the lighter equatorial bands, the impact craters along the limb, all resolvable without a telescope. By any cinematic standard, this is the moon a science fiction writer would invent. But Charon is not a moon in the way Earth has a moon. Pluto and Charon are a binary system. They are tidally locked to each other in a way no other planet-moon pair in the solar system is. Both bodies show the same face to each other, permanently. Charon does not orbit Pluto in any sense you would recognize. They orbit each other, around a point in empty space between them, locked in a mutual gravitational stare that has lasted billions of years and will last billions more. The consequence is geometric and absolute. Charon hangs in one fixed spot in Pluto's sky. It does not rise, it does not set. It does not move across the sky over the course of a Pluto day. It sits, like a painting nailed to the ceiling of the world. And here is the part the documentaries almost never mention. Because Charon is fixed in place, only one hemisphere of Pluto ever sees it. The other hemisphere, half the surface of the entire world, never sees Charon at all. Ever. Not at any time of day, not at any season, not at any point in Pluto's 248-year orbit. If you happen to land on the wrong side, the most spectacular object in your sky would be on the other side of the world, permanently, and you would live and die without ever seeing it. Half a hypothetical Pluto colony would grow up under the moon. The other half would grow up without one. Charon has phases, technically. Its illuminated fraction changes as the Pluto-Charon system orbits the Sun. But those phase changes do not happen nightly, the way Earth's lunar phases do. They unfold across Pluto's 248-year orbital period. A full cycle of Charon's lighting takes longer than the United States has existed as a country. No human lifetime would see the full sequence. So even the lucky hemisphere does not get the moon experience you would expect. They get a frozen tableau, a motionless object that brightens and dims on a timescale longer than civilization. Which raises the harder question. Why are we even imagining standing here at all? What does it mean that the most photographed sky in the outer solar system is one no human will ever stand under? NASA did not lie to you about Pluto. That needs to be said clearly, up front, before this chapter goes anywhere else. The mission was real. The data is real. The discoveries are extraordinary. New Horizons is one of the most successful planetary missions in the history of spaceflight, and the people who built and flew it are not in the business of deceiving the public.
But the language around Pluto has been optimized.
And optimization in institutional communication always points in a direction. Start with the names. Tombao Regio, the famous heart-shaped feature, a vast plain of nitrogen ice, roughly 1,000 kilometers across, named for the man who discovered Pluto in 1930. A perfectly reasonable name. But notice what the public absorbed. They did not absorb 1,000-kilometer nitrogen ice sheet at 40 Kelvin. They absorbed the heart of Pluto. The anthropomorphism is doing work. It is making a lethal landscape feel affectionate. It is borrowing the emotional weight of a human organ, the symbol of warmth, of love, of life, and attaching it to a feature that would freeze a human being into a statue in seconds. Now the mission press language. Read the NASA releases from the July 2015 flyby and after. Pluto is described as complex, dynamic, surprising, geologically active, rich, diverse. All true, all accurate, none of them wrong. But notice the words that do not appear. Lethal, uninhabitable, terminal, beyond reach. The mission's communication strategy emphasized what makes Pluto scientifically interesting, and scientific interest is, almost by definition, framed in terms that invite further investigation, further funding, further public engagement. Then planetary protection. The official framework focuses on what we might do to Pluto: microbial hitchhikers, chemical residues from spacecraft. The protocols exist to protect a potentially pristine environment from terrestrial biology. Notice the asymmetry. There is no equivalent framework discussing what Pluto would do to us. There does not need to be, because no human is going there. But the absence of that conversation means the public never gets reminded of the hostility running in the other direction. Here is the fair version. NASA's job is not to write existential dread. NASA's job is to fly missions, return data, and maintain the political and public support that makes the next mission possible. The romance of New Horizons was not deception. It was a funding argument disguised as a discovery narrative, written by people who genuinely believe, correctly, that exploration is worth doing. The messaging was optimized for one audience: the taxpayers and legislators who decide whether the next outer solar system mission gets built. You are a different audience. You are someone trying to imagine actually standing there. And the language that worked for Congress was not written for you. The moment you strip the soft language away, Pluto's sky starts telling you something about the solar system itself that the press releases never quite reached. The solar system, on the maps, looks generous. 8 planets, a belt of asteroids, a scattering of dwarf planets, the Kuiper belt, the Oort cloud, a vast neighborhood stretching out in concentric circles, suggesting room, suggesting that the sun's domain extends far and that we, as a species, have a long runway of places to go. The maps are not wrong, but they are misleading in the same direction the Pluto renderings were. They flatter us. They make the lit, warm, human-livable region look like a fraction of a much larger whole, when in fact, the human-livable region is the whole story, and everything else is the absence of it. Pluto's sky is the visual evidence of that. Think about what defines a place where a human could plausibly exist. Light enough to see by without complete dependence on artificial illumination. Heat sources close enough that thermal engineering has something to work with. Communication delays short enough that real-time decision-making is possible. Return mission architecture that exists, or could exist, within current physics. The ability to be retrieved if something goes wrong. By those criteria, the human livable corridor of the solar system runs from somewhere inside Venus's orbit to somewhere around Mars. Maybe stretched, with heroic engineering, to the asteroid belt. That is it. That is the corridor. Everything beyond, Jupiter's moons, Saturn's moons, the ice giants, the Kuiper belt, is not a frontier. It is the region where every one of those criteria starts breaking simultaneously. Pluto is past the breaking point on all of them. Compare the distances. Apollo crews reach the Moon in 3 days. Mars crews, if we ever send them, will take 6 to 9 months one way. New Horizons took 9.5 years to reach Pluto, and it did not stop. It flew past at 14 kilometers per second because slowing down at that distance with current propulsion was not an option. No return mission architecture exists for Pluto. None is being seriously designed. The physics does not currently support it.
Communication delay at Pluto's distance is roughly 4.5 hours one way, 9 hours round trip. A crew in trouble could not be talked through a problem in real time. They could not be coached. They would be alone, in a way Apollo astronauts never were. In a way ISS astronauts cannot imagine. In a way Mars astronauts will only partially experience. Here is the reclassification. The dim sky over Pluto is not a feature of one specific dwarf planet. It is the threshold marker, the visible boundary of the region where human presence stops being a round trip and becomes a one-way proposition. Past Pluto, the solar system is not a frontier we are slowly expanding into. It is a region we send instruments through, briefly, and never visit. The question is not what the sky would show you. The question is whether you would ever come back to describe it. Compress it down, strip it to the proofs. The sun is a star, not a metaphor, not a poetic flourish, a measured fact. 50 arcseconds of angular diameter, below the resolution limit of the human eye, indistinguishable in shape from any other bright point in the sky. The sky is too clear to be comforting. No atmosphere worth the name. No scattering. No filtering. Stars hold absolutely still, and the Milky Way is bright enough to cast a shadow. And that shadow is the only one half the world ever gets. The Moon is a paradox. Charon hangs motionless above one hemisphere and is permanently invisible from the other. Half of any imagined Pluto would live and die without ever seeing the most cinematic moon in the solar system. The cold does not freeze you, it ends you. 40 Kelvin. Nitrogen as rock. Tissue that does not crystallize gracefully but snows out, frosts inward, fails in ways biology has no protocol for. The distance is not crossed. New Horizons took 9.5 years and did not stop. No return architecture exists. The communication delay alone is long enough that a crew in trouble would be functionally alone. That is the case. That is what the sky on Pluto actually shows you. The beautiful alien sky was always a projection. It was the version painted for a species that lives in daylight by people who needed the painting to do specific work. Funding work, engagement work, wonder work. None of that is dishonest. All of it is incomplete. The real sky is a mirror. It shows you, with absolute physical precision, how small the warm, lit, breathable corridor of the solar system actually is. Return to the opening image. You are standing on Pluto. It is noon. The sky is black. The sun is a star. Charon hangs motionless above you, if you are lucky enough to be on the right side, and nothing in the sky is moving toward you. Nothing is coming for you. No rescue, no relief, no reference point. That stillness is not peace. It is the visual evidence that you have reached a place that does not care whether you are there. The sky on Pluto is what the universe looks like when it stops pretending we belong in it. And yet, we sent something. New Horizons made the journey. A piece of human curiosity stood, briefly, where we cannot, and looked up, and sent the picture back. That photograph, the real one, with the bright pinprick sun,
and the unresolved blackness around it is the closest most of us will ever get to that sky. Given what it actually shows, that may be enough. What the sky on Pluto would show you is not wonder. It is the edge.